Hello team, welcome back to another Line Warcast. Here's your map today. It's just one big land mass. I mean, there's land like these little two islands to the left, but I don't think they're really gonna come into play. There's a trade route on the top, little city on this island. Our two players today are SE2, who will be in red. I will likely call them SC2 for most of the game, and tuponulo. I hope I didn't pronounce that wrong, but tupo is blue and spawning in the bottom, as we can see here with the blue outlines. I'm going to call them Tupo instead of tuponulo. You can hear I'm kind of fumbling over that. Anyway, game is started. We have both players spawning right beside each other, so they'll both know. We can see the vision of Tupo here, so definitely knows that SE2 is right, like starting close, and SE2 also realizes infantry fighting in the forest. It's a 4 factory start from SE2. We'll see what Tupo wants to go with. It looks like it's 2 airport immediately from Tupo, so this is wild. Unfortunately for Tupo, this is going to be hard to hold off, I think. I mean, if Tupo can like start teching into helicopters and get them out quick enough to deal with whatever comes out of these factories, and hopefully it's not a bunch of SAMs, then Tupo might be in a good spot. I love that these are 3 barracks and even 4 barracks behind this. I'm a big fan of going barracks here. Maybe 1 factory and then a gas. I assume the gas is the next thing on the way, especially with 2 factories, or pardon me, 2 airports going for helicopters. SC2 is going for tanks out of the first 3 factories. We'll see what the 4th factory is going to do. And same thing, SC2 is going to have to get a gas real quick. It's kind of an interesting spawn start, because both players have a relatively safe gas in their forest, starting on where their buildings are, but then the other gas is situated between the 2 bases. SC2, I think, has a little bit of an advantage in the start spot here, just because they're going to be able to cap to the north with at least 1 squad, whereas Tupo is going to, I mean, is definitely kind of boxed into this bottom part of the map. Right, so over time, economically, it'll be tougher for Tupo. They're going to have to go through all these factories. They're winning this infantry battle. I like this. They have good numbers, so blue is going to be able to push this back. More tanks from SE2, and it's all 4 factories are building tanks. SE's also got a nice little second gas in the back, and I sort of like that they've gone for this gas instead of the one in the forest. Although I don't think SE2 knows what the buildings are at this point. I mean, this looks sketchy because the replay's changing the vision, and we can definitely hear that first helicopter in the fog of war. But I'm not sure if SE2 would know that this is happening. Sort of surprised that the tanks aren't... I guess I'm not really surprised that they're just capping. Tanks are very slow through forest. I put this up every single replay that I do, it feels like, but the tank speed penalty in uncontrolled territory in forests is quite large, so they move quite a bit slower. Through mountains, they're pretty much useless, movement speed-wise. Tubo's going for first gas, and SC2 has a huge economic lead here. Tubo's losing money, unfortunately. This is a tough spot. I feel like this is like easily just caught off guard here for Tupo. It's a close spawn. 2 airports already is wildly adventurous and bold, I think. But every second that goes by, Tupo gets an advantage because there's no SAMs here. The first 3 SAMs are about to pop for SC2, so horrible timing. Right, because the second these 4 SAMs get out, they're going to be able to stick in the forest. And it's going to be very difficult for the helicopters to do much, because helicopters aren't that great against SAMs. 356 income for SC2 and 260 for Tupo, who is unfortunately out of gas because this gas didn't start quick enough. Unfortunately, I wonder if the helicopters went in and tried to snipe buildings, how this would go. Because right now, Tupo's in a lot of trouble. Look at all the land that SC2 is able to cap in the north. I think SC2 is going by a different gamer tag at this point. I don't know. I played them on stream the other day. I've also played Tupo. Both these players are pretty good, I think. You can see helicopters engaging infantry, and this is going to be a good fight for blue. For sure with the helicopter help. And the SAMs for SE2 are content to just stay at the base, which I think is actually the right call, because if 4 helicopters, what's soon to be 6 helicopters likely, yes, so soon to be 6 helicopters for Tupo, if they got on top of these buildings without any SAMs here, they would actually be able to kill 1 or 2 factories relatively quick. This is a money problem. Tupo doesn't technically have enough cash to build this helicopter. Helicopters cost 60, and they won't start until you have 60 in the bank, and then you take away 60. Right, as you would expect. Whereas SC2 is able to keep producing, and this is going to be a very difficult comeback for Tupo at this point. Really, it's going to come down to they're going to have to use these helicopters perfectly and get a ton of value out of them. 416 income for SC2 with 350 in the bank. 332 for Tupo with 59 in the bank and losing money. I think it's probably one too many barracks when it comes down to it. Yeah. Something like that. You can get rid of that. If you press tab, fun fact, if you press tab, you'll get the different ranges that the airplanes can fly from the airports, right? So this green line is the helicopters range, so they can definitely get here. Strikers and interceptors are blue, and the transport jets and the bombers are the red one at the furthermost ring. Like, Tubo doing this, it's such a great move, and sniping these tanks, at least shoring up like one of the sides. But even now, like, these helicopters have to bounce between these two sides, so it's very hard to move them because their range is such that you have to kind of move them halfway and then they could get to the north instead of just going to the north immediately. This would be super huge from Tupo if they could kill some of the SAMs. You can see their vision. In forests, there's a lot of stealth that is granted to the buildings, and this so far isn't enough units for Tupo to get that detection. We can continue to watch. The helicopters passing by might help out enough, although I'm not sure what their range is. And this is the view for Tupo, so you can see how oppressive this feels, right? It's all red on all 3 sides of you. You're on the south of the island. This is about the only decent thing that's happening. I think if all these infantry were to fight these SAMs, they would maybe get 1 SAM. SAMs do pretty decent against infantry. Although if I'm Tupo right now, I'm very happy to trade out infantry for SAMs, because all of these helicopters behind could do a ton of damage if the SAM count got reduced. We can see just how bad it is though, especially with the other tanks spawning. Love this run by Tupo to try to get on top of a factory. If Tupo could get this with just 2 infantry, that would be a big win. 5 helicopters, 6 helicopters now that are going to hover above the targets. They're going to take out 2 tanks likely. It's tough. I feel like this is the ideal number of helicopters to have at any given time. Personally, for me, it's tough to keep handling them after about 6. And Tubo's still making helicopters. They're so weak to SAMs. This one's definitely getting taken out, but 1 helicopter for 2 tanks, almost 3 tanks. I'll let the mathematicians in chat figure out if that's worth it or not. Okay, so this bottom thing, I love this pathing to get all this, but unfortunately now that infantry is just kind of wasting time. 464 income for Tupo's got out of the red now, and 512 for SC2, so it's not even that bad. Again, the key is for Tupo to be able to handle these helicopters without losing them to SAMs. And ultimately, if it's plays like this, we just heard 2 barracks from SC2 going down in the north, and it's just gonna snowball their economic lead. Because really, Tupo needs to break out on the left side or the right side in a very meaningful way. Then the great thing about this starting location for Tupo is that, and the fact that SC2 went for tanks, is because the tanks are gonna take forever to get to the buildings here. And they have very, very poor range, like vision, rather. These tanks definitely can't see this. I don't know, the replay I think makes it look weird in that there's like gaps in the forest, but I don't think SE2 can see that. They're also out of gas. This is entirely SAM and tank play from SE2. So here comes the second gas. There's some commandos. These pair very well with tanks because commandos have increased range. And if Tupo was super on it and feeling it, maybe even rushing these tanks while they're out of gas. When there's the black plume like this, I believe somewhere in the Discord, since that's the only way to understand any of the numbers when it comes down to it, is they take for 5 seconds they take 50% more damage from every unit. So every time that those tanks do that, the black smoke, if the every time the infantry shoot them, like, you know what I'm trying to say, it's advantageous to jump on the tanks when they're out of gas. And like SE2 has so many tanks, right? Like there's 3 more on the right side. They kind of go big picture here. Unfortunately, the helicopters aren't going to be able to do much just because of the SAM numbers, and SAMs will just ruin helicopters, as we saw a little bit earlier. Like 2 full batteries of helicopters against this, or of SAMs against this many helicopters, the helicopters are gonna have a tough time dealing with it. There is a lot though. At this point, I feel like SE2 kind of needs to just send the helicopters and try to get good trades, leave SE2 with 1 SAM battery behind, and kind of go from there. And they might not even need to do it with the tanks out of gas like this. Maybe 5 barracks, part of me, will be enough to deal with it. On the left side, they're making beautiful progress up the coast. Again, the north is tough because SE2 has so much of it. Here comes every helicopter. They're going to definitely be able to clear out the SAMs. I mean, once all these helicopters show up, this swarm of helicopters is enough. Yeah, this is perfect. And if they go home now before engaging this entire battery of SAMs, I think that was a great play. Now, if there's like 3 helicopters that get lost here, unfortunately it makes it not as great, but that might be the perfect time to pull back. The heli's not really, maybe a little bit late. Definitely lost 1, going to lose a second one because these SAMs can just like shoot missiles that are meant for air targets just on the ground. I think they do just as much damage. So these SAMs are really coming in clutch. They took out 3 helicopters at least there. These commandos have the ability to end the game because they're stealth. Tupo can't see them. There's not enough units here. And it's just very annoying to deal with commandos. They're like the Dark Templar of line war to some degree. It's an oversimplification, but I'll let it stand. This many infantry are going to be able to take out the SAMs for sure. And if Tupo had, I don't know, there's no more SAMs left for SE2. It would have been so great for Tupo to pull back the helicopters a little bit earlier on the last mission that they flew. The breakout on the right is legit. Economy-wise, though, SE2 at 572 and Tupo at 560, so Tupo's really coming back here. And still building helicopters. I don't mind this barracks on the right-hand side. This is going to help Tupo reestablish the right side of the map. The nice thing about this kind of way that it's boxed in is if you can control this right side, it very naturally is defensible as long as you can get to this tree line. SAM's retreating onto the production. This is almost the time, like the chance for Tupo to just go for it. There's only 3 SAMs. They of course don't know this. But with only 3 SAMs, if this many helicopters launched at the buildings, they would be able to clear the SAMs and do a ton more damage. Tanks fighting infantry. This is definitely enough tanks to kill this much infantry. And SE2 knows it, I think, by grouping these tanks. All SAMs right now. And this is a tense moment because Tupo can definitely make something of this. Flock of helicopters, as they're called, not a squadron, a flock of helicopters on the way down to the bottom right to deal with 3 tanks. The tanks on the top left, like we said, definitely enough to clear out that many infantry, which is tough. That's a tough loss for Tupo because I think that was like a good part of the map for them. They were making a lot of progress up that left side. This is the big strength. This is 100% the big strength that Tupa's got going right now. You can see that the tanks get lost in the mountains. Sometimes, like, in the mountains, they get the stealth. And Tupo definitely needs a second gas to keep going with this many helicopters. Maybe it's not, like, you could, I guess you could just keep getting helicopters instead of strikers. I personally feel like I would have gone for strikers a little bit ago. Just, if you get 2 airports worth of strikers, launching them at, like, the gas even would be huge. I guess an attack move kind of on this would be decent, certainly to help out with the tanks, as long as these helicopters can get back. But SE2 is making a good play because they know that the helicopters are all on the bottom right, so they're moving in the tanks for what is potentially going to be a killing blow. Certainly if the tanks get the refinery, this is for sure over. SE2's vision is not reliable, we don't know. Maybe they'll see the refinery, maybe not. Tupo might get a factory here. Certainly will. At least we'll be able to kill a bunch of the SAMs. But with only 2 helicopters back at home, this is the play that matters. And I think SC2 is going to pull it off because there's no way this many tanks die. There is enough gas. Red is going to focus the refinery. And with 5 tanks that are only focusing a refinery, they are definitely going to kill it before this many infantry and helicopters can clear up even 1 tank. Tanks diving gases. It's a very good play. 668 income for SE2, 560 for Tupo, who I think had a very good comeback moment there. Was able to kind of make the best out of a bad situation with the spawn the way that it was. I heard Tupo build something. Here's the gas. So it's a power plant. And I don't blame Tupo for trying to do that, because there's no way they can build this gas. I mean, these tanks are gonna kill the rest of the buildings. They're very strong, very strong. And it's just it's a shame because there's so many helicopters on the map for Tubo. Definitely at the sufficient level to call it a swarm of helicopters, and they do so much damage when they're stacked up like that. Yeah, at this point the game certainly is over, unfortunately. For Tubo, 1 commando just going at it. How many helicopters do you think this commando can get? 2? If we look on Tupo's vision, they can't see this helicopter. And this is all they would get, right? If you played this game, you know how infuriating this is. Not infuriating, that's not the word. But that's about the only, you know, warning or indication that you're getting killed by commandos, is the sound and then ultimately the target exploding. Tupo's going for another power plant, which certainly makes sense because all these helicopters are, unfortunately, like, I mean, they won't even be able to move. Because they're gonna take off and have to land immediately. I feel like Tupo might want to cancel, like, in this situation, probably canceling helicopters would be good to get more money. But even then, like, to get more money to get what? Tupo can finally see this clearly. They're gonna clean up the 1 helicopter because this 1 power plant is finally up, but the power plants are about a third of pardon me. Power plants are 1/3 as efficient as refineries. And so you definitely, like, in general, 3 power plants for 1 refinery. There are tons of helicopters here, which is great for Tupo, but these definitely would need at least 2 gases, potentially even 3 really, to keep them moving consistently. SE2's going for Samiko now. Definitely have a commanding lead over this game. And just like other replays that we've cast on this channel lately, tanks seem to be coming up a decent amount. And clearly there's strengths to them. I think Tupo could have made this work. I think it's just kind of like an unlucky draw, and then not being able to get that second gas up in time is tough. Tanks shooting helicopters always fun to see. Like, look at how quickly these helicopters are able to clean up the tanks. And now SE2 is going to dive on the gas, and as soon as even one power plant's dead, these helicopters are done. They can barely even move anymore, right? And as soon as the second power plant finishes, this first one is going to get sniped. That's the end of the game. Oh, there's actually 2 more power plants. I love this. I love these hidden power plants. Because there is something we said, if Tupo could get some gases, hidden or not, and then clean up all the tanks around these bases, they could potentially make a game of it. Either way, well played from both players. Wonderful stuff. Thanks for watching. If you're interested, check out the Line War Discord for like-minded people who chat about the game, whatever. You can ask questions and learn in there. Check out Twitch if you'd like to see the game live stream. I stream it over there. Other folks do too. Come drop by, check out the category. But otherwise, have a great night, day, evening, breakfast, lunch, whatever it is. Enjoy. Peace, folks.